This is not paranoia. This is prophecy. You were marked the moment you entered the room, not with ink, but with light. A light too rare for this world to ignore. That unease you felt, it wasn't imagined. It was recognition, the kind that threatens darkness. Is it surveillance, or is it spiritual warfare? Is it harassment, or is it heaven's spotlight exposing what hell fears most? Stay, because what you are about to hear will unravel the tension that's been strangling your peace. By the end of this message, you will understand why your very existence has triggered an invisible war, why the eyes won't stop watching, why the whispers never cease. Welcome to Chosen One's Prophecy, where the hidden are revealed, the marked are gathered, and your silence is finally answered. Remember Joseph, favored yet followed, anointed yet ambushed. Genesis 37 tells us that even his brothers watched him, not with love, but with suspicion, because heaven's dreams spoken aloud stir hell's jealousy in secret. And now, so it is with you. There is a pattern, there is a prophecy, and it has your name carved into its scroll. Stay, because the signs about to unfold may explain your entire life. Marked by mystery. The unseen target on your back. You were never hidden because you were weak. You were hidden because you were holy. Before you spoke a word, before you touched a platform, the spirit realm had already identified your light. Hell doesn't chase the ordinary. It stalks the anointed. The unease, the side glances, the strangers staring too long, they were never random. They were spiritual diagnostics. Demons recognize design. The enemy saw what you couldn't yet articulate. That your presence interrupts patterns, that your voice pierces through pretense. You are not being watched because you're broken. You're being tracked because you carry breakthrough. You weren't followed because you failed. You were followed because you were formed. Remember Joseph. His dreams didn't just provoke favor, they provoked surveillance. Genesis 37:11 says, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. The world watches what it doesn't understand, and what it secretly fears. The eyes are proof. The silence is proof. You were marked before you were known, and the shadows have known it all along. What if the attention you dread is actually your divine evidence? The silent years. Isolation is sacred. The silence wasn't God's absence. It was his shield. You weren't abandoned. You were insulated, protected in plain sight. When the text stopped, when the rooms grew colder, when your name was no longer invited, heaven was closing you in like a womb. The rejection was a revelation. Elijah was hidden by the brook Cherith. David was left in the fields. Jesus disappeared until his appointed hour. Obscurity is not failure, it is formation. You weren't overlooked, you were overprepared. The gangstalking didn't begin when you became bold. It began when your obedience became dangerous. Your consecration called attention. The light in your eyes threatened their illusion. You were never meant to blend in. So God cloaked you. In quiet, in stillness, in sacred detachment. Because what's fragile is always hidden until it's ready to carry fire. They didn't invite you, but heaven did. What if the silence was proof that you had already left the crowd? Forged in the fire, the pressure that produces power. Pain is the forge, and you are the blade. Every betrayal was not just an attack. It was an anointing. The slander wasn't to destroy your name. It was to sever your dependence on it. God allowed the surveillance, the whispers, the pressure, not to punish you, but to purify you. Job was stripped until only faith remained. Joseph was confined until vision matured. You were watched while you wept, and heaven recorded every tear as oil. The fire did not burn you, it branded you. You weren't broken, you were branded. That surveillance you feel, it's spiritual resistance reacting to spiritual resonance. Hell hears your footsteps in the hallway of destiny. The enemy only presses when the promise is near. and every time they whispered, heaven was sharpening your sword. What if the fire that tried to consume you was actually the furnace of your commission? When you don't listen, the cost of ignoring the signs. There is a danger in trying to disappear, especially when you were sent to disrupt. Some chosen ones delay their breakthrough by denying their identity. They try to blend, to stay small, to silence their sound. But heaven doesn't allow camouflage for those sent to confront. There are consequences to shrinking. Jonah fled and ended up in a storm. Saul compromised and lost his crown. When the chosen dim their light, darkness doesn't disappear. It dominates. You've seen the signs, the dreams, the disturbances, the repeated cycles. Ignoring them won't make them disappear. It only deepens the warfare. You cannot reject your mantle and expect peace. The anxiety, the inner tension, that's your scroll screaming from within. What if your unrest isn't demonic, but divine? Darkness confrontation. Why hell targeted you. Early hell attacks early what heaven anoints eternally. The resistance you felt in childhood. The emotional neglect. The betrayals that came too soon. These weren't accidents. They were assassination attempts. Demonic systems detect divine birthmarks. The earlier your light appears, the faster hell reacts. Moses was hunted as a baby. Jesus was threatened before he could speak, and you've been stalked since your soul began to awaken. You were not just attacked, you were identified. Spiritual gangstalking is the invisible contract of intimidation sent to silence your roar before it matures. But it failed, because you're still here, still discerning, still carrying weight. The greater the calling, the louder the resistance. What if the enemy's obsession with you is the clearest proof of who you really are? Walking with authority. You are not powerless. You don't just survive surveillance, you reverse it. Luke 10:19. Behold, I have given you authority over all the power of the enemy. Chosen one, your spiritual authority is not reactive, it's royal. You are not a victim of this warfare, you are a verdict against it. The glances, the whispers, the monitoring spirits, they have no permission to dominate you unless you forget who you are. Put on the armor, speak the word, establish your boundary. You're not just being watched, you're being waited on by heaven to step into rulership. You are the surveillance, not the subject. What once intimidated you now fears you. If this resonates, comment 444 below as a prophetic sign that you are receiving and rising. What if the very thing that made you hide was the thing God plans to magnify? Heaven's commission. Why the watching won't stop. This surveillance isn't just opposition, it's confirmation. You've been called to walk in the open, to move with divine transparency, to carry fire so undeniable that even your silence testifies. The glances won't stop, not because you're cursed, but because you're carrying clarity. Isaiah 60:1. Arise, shine, for your light has come. Chosen ones don't hide, they herald, and heaven's scroll on your life is not private. It echoes, it convicts, it ignites. You are a walking alarm clock in a world addicted to sleep. You are not watched because you're weak. You're watched because you're a warning. What if the eyes are drawn? Because God made you visible for such a time as this. Remnant rising. You're not alone. In this you were scattered, not abandoned. The enemy's greatest lie is isolation, convincing the chosen that they're alone in their seeing, their weeping, their resistance. But you are not alone. A remnant is rising. A hidden army is awakening. Elijah thought he was the last. God said, I have reserved 7,000. There are others like you, misfits with mantles, silent warriors, watchmen in the shadows, and together you form the resistance that hell fears most. You are not the only one. You are part of the only ones. What if the eyes watching you are also watching them. Echo activation. Your light must multiply. This was never just about you. The surveillance, the testing, the pressure, they all prepared you for the release, because what you carry is generational. What you survived is instructional. You're not here to explain your pain. You're here to release power through it. You are not a container. You are a conduit. The echo begins when you stop hiding, when your light speaks, when your scroll unfolds in motion. Your survival is someone else's permission. Let your sound go forth, and let the ones still hiding hear their call in your voice. You weren't haunted by watchers, you were heralded by them, because when heaven releases a sound the earth has never heard, even hell leans in to listen. What followed you wasn't fear, it was recognition. Your light exposed what others buried. Your truth disturbed what others tolerated. Your presence revealed what silence could no longer cover. You are not the one being hunted. You are the one being unleashed. Chosen one. You passed through the fire without losing your flame. You walked through the silence and still heard the whisper. You endured the surveillance and still kept your scroll hidden within. Now the seal breaks, and the scroll unrolls. You have been watched. You have been warned. Now you will be witnessed. Comment 777 below if your spirit knows this word was confirmation. Tell us what pierced deepest, what awakened, what reminded you of who you are. Subscribe now to Chosen One's Prophecy, where the hidden are gathered and the marked are equipped, because you are not walking this path alone. This is a remnant. This is a rising. And you are the next echo.